Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. What we've got for you today is the final preview video of the season going into game week 38, where there is usually a ton of chaos, and I have my free hit active as well. So hopefully, if you have it active or you're just looking for some good 1 week transfers, this video will help you out. If it does, please do subscribe. We're closing in on 350 subscribers, which would be such a cool milestone to get before the end of the season. So if you can help with that, it would be really appreciated, and I am really grateful for everyone who supported the channel so far. What we're going to do today is we're going to take a review look at game week 37, where I did play my bench boost, and then I'm going to talk team selection, captaincy options, and transfer advice as well. So let's take a look at how my team did. And in goal, it wasn't great because Jose Sa didn't play. So like I say, I played my bench boost, but I had a few players that didn't actually play at all in the end, which really did nullify the impact of it. One of them was Jose Sa, who's played a lot this season for Wolves and just got rotated out. And I know Wolves conceded 4 goals, and if Jose Sa had played and they'd still conceded 4 goals, he would have scored 0 points anyway. So that's a little bit, of me trying to cope with him not playing. But if he had played, he probably would have done better anyway, and they probably wouldn't have conceded as many goals. So Raya on the bench getting 7 points in a normal bench boost week would have been great. Your bench goalkeeper getting 7 points is awesome, but the fact that Sa didn't play meant that he came in anyway. And the same for Semedo. He got rotated with Jose Sa as well, which to have both of them, when players like Aït-Nouri did play, it was a little bit disappointing. But again, Aït-Nouri scored 0 points, so I didn't miss out on any points in terms of that for Wolves. It's just unfortunate for a week where you played your bench boost. So Cucurella coming in was great. I transferred him in for Mario, and whilst I might be unlucky with my bench boost, you've got to look at both sides of it, because I got a little bit lucky with Cucurella, not in the fact that I picked him, but the fact that Man United did score and had a goal disallowed, which would have wiped Cucurella's clean sheet, any bonus points. As it stands, he scored the winner for a 1-0 win, so he got 15 points, which was a huge differential. You look at someone like Gvardiol, who had his clean sheet wiped in the last minute, and you think, oh, that's disappointing. But because he's so high owned, it doesn't really affect my rank very much. It doesn't, it looks better when you score more points just for your game week score, but especially at this stage of the season, you're looking for those differential players that really come through to impact your actual rank, and Cucurella definitely did that for me. So in midfield, I did have El Canouse as well. I brought him in for Jacob Murphy, and he did get 1 more point than Jacob Murphy, which I'll take, but I was hoping he'd come off my bench, hoping he would score some goals. I got him in because he played Ipswich at home. Jamie Vardy's last game for Leicester, I was like, well, obviously Jamie Vardy's going to score, but I like my strikers at the time. So who's going to assist Jamie Vardy? Well, El Canouse had got 2 assists in his last 2 games. I thought he would be someone who, again, would be a massive differential. If he got an attacking return, nobody else owned him. I thought I needed to use my transfers because I'm using my free hit this game week, and is someone that on my bench boost I could just get in. So it didn't quite work out, but I will take 3 points. Elsewhere, Mbeumo did get an attacking return, but he did miss a penalty, and that could have just been another massive swing for my overall points, because so many people captained Watkins, who ended up getting 5 points anyway, and Mbeumo just matched that. At the time, you think, oh, if he'd scored that pen as well, he really could have got some massive scores. But I will just take an attacking return from my captain at this stage of the season. And the same for Bowen and Alanga. They were good returns. And no, not many people own Alanga. I don't think too many people own Bowen. He's obviously more owned than he was a few weeks ago when I got him in now. But I am really grateful that I've managed to get on him from early and got those extra points. So El Canouse did end up coming in as well because Isak didn't play. So whilst my strikers did do well, Marmoush got a goal and some bonus, and Watkins still got his assist, my bench boost actually only got me 1 point. So I've left it as it is because that was my original bench boost order, so you could see what I sort of did there. But Raya, El Canouse and both ended up coming in, and Kanate only got 1 point. So that's a bench boost of 1 point. So overall, I did get 67 points for the game week, and it was my 7th green arrow in a row of about 80k. So I've gone from about 800k to 300k in about 7 weeks, which is really good, and I'm hoping I can get to 250k with my free hit this game week, which would be a really good end to the season. But my bench boost didn't help me at all with that rank. So unfortunate, I had to play it this game week because of my free hit next game week. And it is what it is, really. You've just got to take it as it comes. And 1 point off my bench is better than no points off my bench. And we just roll into next game week. I think it's unfortunate because I'm now 21 points behind one of my mini leagues, which I really do want to win. And at one point in this game week, I was only 8 points behind because of, Raya had played before Saar, and same with El Canoes. But because my mate has Isaac as well, he didn't play, and he got Strand Larsen's 11 points off his bench, which is a really big differential at this stage of the season because he didn't have his bench boost active. But my mate doesn't have his free hit active this game week as well, so this is where I need to really start planning to sort of keep some of the players where I think they could score well and look for some differentials on top. So in terms of fixtures for this game week, super interesting. Love the last game week of the season just because they all kick off at the same time, and there is the chance of team news as well. So having my free hit could mean I can take advantage of that. In terms of captaincy, I think Salah is a great pick. I know he's been blanking a lot recently, but you have to look at the games where there's going to be lots of goals, where neither team really cares about it. So there's always some big scoring games at the end of the season. I'm sure you've seen some graphics in other FPL content creator videos which have been showing how there's extra goals in game week 38 compared to the rest of the season. Now, games like Man United, Aston Villa, I don't necessarily think will be really high scoring. I think, even your Southampton Arsenals, Southampton have been all right recently. There's a lot of people they've been all right defensively recently. There's a lot of people who are captaining Saka. Talking about captaining Saka, I feel like you couldn't pay me to captain Saka this game week. I think there's absolutely nothing that would suggest Saka would be a good attacking return player for captaincy this game week. Of course he could, but we're going to talk about Arsenal a little bit in my team selection in a bit. But I just think to captain him away at Southampton when Arsenal are probably going to rotate heavily and don't really have anything to play for, and Southampton have been good defensively, is just a bit too risky when you've got Salah at home chasing records. I do also like Bowen away at Ipswich, just because Ipswich have been so poor recently, and they've been also so poor at home. They've actually got more points away from home than they have at home. Now, the problem with captaining Bowen is West Ham just don't tend to score a lot. Like, Bowen scored in the last game week, but it was their only chance. And I think if he'd blanked, people would have been a lot colder on Bowen. So for me, it probably is between Salah and Bowen. But I think I'll go Salah just for the safety net. He's got a lower baseline of points, right? He's a lot more likely to score at all than Bowen is. So I think if you just want some points from your captain this game week, go for Salah. If you feel like you want to chase some upside or some differential, go for Bowen. So right, let's get into the free hit here. And we're going to start in goal. And I am keeping hold of Raya just because I think he's chasing this clean sheet record, or he's chasing the Golden Glove for the most clean sheets in a season for Arsenal. And Arsenal will be aware of that. So I do think, A, he's going to play, and B, Arsenal are going to be trying to keep a clean sheet, and C, whilst we talked about Southampton's defence being better, the attack is still awful. So I really don't see Southampton scoring, which means that I've gone cheap for Fabianski on my bench. It also means I've gone for Kiwior in my defence. Now, double Arsenal defence I think is good. I'd much rather have their defence as a double up than their attack, just given the rotation risks. I've also gone for Shah at home to Everton. I think there's a lot of talk about how Everton have had their big sort of send-off from Goodison Park, and now they're away from home, and Newcastle are really good at home, and they've got something to play for. So I don't necessarily think it's going to be a 4-5-0. Same with Arsenal. I think they're probably more likely to be 2-0s. But in defence, the fact that it's 0 from the other team really counts a lot. And for Shah, I think Everton have got Branthwaite and Tarkowski out. So there's a lot more aerial potential from Newcastle defenders. Someone like Dan Burn, I think, is also a good shout this week. And you're kind of splitting hairs between the two of them, depending on, who you can afford. So I could always just save about £1 million and go for Dan Burn instead. I've also got Wan-Bissaka here, just because I think Ipswich have also been struggling from attack. And I think Wan-Bissaka's got 2 assists in his last 3 games, and he's a lot more attacking away from home, when West Ham tend to play 5 at the back, and he's playing as a wing back. So I thought, well, if Wan-Bissaka is going to keep a clean sheet and there's a chance of another attacker return, that could be a big haul as well. And as I talked about earlier in the video, my mate, who I'm trying to beat in my mini league, he doesn't own any Arsenal or Newcastle defenders, and he also doesn't own Wan-Bissaka. So this is a lot of differential players who not only could get clean sheets, but also attacking returns. Now, one thing I do have to be aware of is players that he does own and then could score quite well, because like I've got Gvardiol on the bench here. There's no point me owning Shah if he gets a goal and a clean sheet, if Gvardiol does the same thing. But I do think Man City's defence is a little bit wobbly, and these guys are a lot more likely to keep those clean sheets. Now, in midfield is where I'm also aware of this. Now, going into this week, midfield was where I was the most sure of my free hit team. So I was like, right, Bowen and Bumo and Salah, they're locks. You know, they're something that players that everybody owns, and the players that my mate owns as well. So there's no point taking these guys out, A, if I think they're going to score well, and B, if a lot of other people are going to own them. I kind of do need to not go differential for differential's sake and keep hold of some key players, because again, if I sell these players and I think they're going to score and they do score, well, that's going to damage my rank. And even if the players I get in match those points, kind of not really gaining anything there. So you've got to kind of keep your squad solid and try and improve the filler players around them. And that's what I've done for Martinelli and Semenyo. Now, ever since Bournemouth played Man City and Semenyo just looked a bit out of it, a bit sort of out too far wide, a bit too defensive, I have had some question marks there. And the same for Martinelli in terms of rotation. Now that Havertz is back, he could also take minutes, but I do like Martinelli as an option. Like we said earlier in the video, I think a lot of people are going for Saka this game week. I think Saka's 4 million more expensive, so not really worth it in comparison. And I think Martinelli just doesn't have that much competition on the left-hand side of attack. And usually it's these big players people get in, and it's someone else around them who kind of picks up those points. Up front at the moment, I've not made any changes. Now, this is kind of based on Isak's fitness. So the defence is kind of made. I've made those transfers. This is what my team looks like right now. I'm waiting on some team news for Isak, just because if he's injured, he's obviously going to come out. But if he's not injured, I think that Everton at home game is quite good for him, and I think he could get some attacking returns. And like I say, my mate in my mini league also has Isak, so there's no point taking him out just yet, because if he's playing, he's one of those players I want. Now, there are some differences I could make that I'm considering, which we'll talk through now. A lot of those come in attack and on the bench, and it's going to look like this. So this is kind of plan B here, and I'll talk you through the changes. So I've gone for Nick Pope as my bench goalkeeper, mainly just because if Raya doesn't play, I do want someone coming off my bench. You know, I don't necessarily want 0 points in goal. And I've also gone for Luis Diaz instead of Martinelli. Now, Martinelli, like we say, is a risk of minutes, or at least coming off early. Luis Diaz, if I think that he's going to start, I think he's brilliant against Crystal Palace. I think that Liverpool Palace game could be really high scoring, mainly because neither team really cares about it. You know, I think for a game like Watkins away at Man United, that isn't going to be as high scoring as people think, especially because Man United lost the Europa League final. That's why I'm waiting till today to put this video out, because I thought it would affect my potential team selection dependent on how that Europa League final goes, because Man United will be playing Villa at home. They're going to want to put in a good performance now because they've lost, and Villa are going to want to win, so they're less likely to go all out attacking, because if they go all out attacking and concede early on, then it kind of ruins their game plan. They just need to win. They're not one of those teams that are going to be just attacking for the sake of attacking, which reduces Watkins' attacking output. And, you know, sorry to talk about my mates in the mini league, but hopefully you can relate if you're in the same position. But he doesn't own Watkins. So it's a bit like, well, if I take Watkins out and he does get a few attacking returns, I'm actually not losing anything there. Whereas if I think someone else could outscore him, then it makes sense to get that transfer in. So the first player I'd bring in would be Evan Nielsen, because if I'm taking Semenyo out here, I do want a Bournemouth attacker at home to Leicester City. He is the player who's in form, and Evan Nielsen does just look a better attacking option. There's a lot more midfielders that I think could score points than strikers this game week. I've also brought in Danny Welbeck. Now, that's if Isak's out. If Isak is playing, Welbeck doesn't play. If Isak's injured, then Welbeck comes in. So Evan Nielsen would be the first attacker I'd bring in. Welbeck would be the second one. And I think part of that is because now Spurs have won the Europa League, they're really not going to be that bothered about the league. It's going to be celebrations anyway. And I think Brighton are the sort of team who can score a lot of goals. So Welbeck comes in. Now, if it gets word that João Pedro starts instead of Welbeck, then I'll have to rethink that. But that's as it stands. I've also gone for the triple up in Arsenal's defence here. Now, unfortunately, with a free hit, it means you've got strong players on the bench. So you might also think, well, why have you not just got a really cheap player on your bench, which is something that I do tend to do most of the time. But if there's not really anywhere that I need to spend the money, I might as well just have my bench stacked up in case something happens like this game week where 2 or 3 of my starting lineup don't play and I do need my bench to come in. It makes sense if you've got the money just to have that cover. So Ben White would be my first defender off the bench. And then I do also like Kevin Schade as well from Brentford. So I don't own Visser, although if Isak's out and it looks like João Pedro's starting, I could bring Visser in as a Brentford attacker. But Kevin Schade, I felt like just kind of offsets that Brentford attack a little bit as a little bit more of a differential. So this is the team, possibly as it gets close to the deadline. I thought I'd put out both options just in case, you're wondering where my thoughts are at, and it hopefully helps you out. There is a potential that I have a mixture of both these teams. My first team that I showed you and this team. And there's also potential that maybe if I'm playing Ben White, he probably comes in for Wan-Bissaka and Wan-Bissaka drops to the bench. And again, the problem you have is that you go with 8 big attackers, like in my first team I showed you. Well, I have to bench one of those. So it was like benching Watkins before. And so I think you do have to be aware of benching headaches as well when you're looking at your team. But if you've got any questions, I know this video is a little bit longer than usual, so if you've made it this far, thank you very much. But if you've got any questions of your own team or anyone you think I'm missing, pop them in the comments. Likewise, if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. Hopefully you have an awesome last game week and just enjoy the ride, because FPL is a game and it's just worth playing sometimes just for the enjoyment. And I will see you in the season review, which we'll do next week.